everybody. Oh my gosh, I am seriously so incredibly excited to be here. My name is Ashley DeLuca, and I am an email communication strategist that focuses specifically on helping you amplify relationships in sales using email marketing. Now, one of the things that I know and understand is that a lot of times email marketing is just one of the pieces in our ecosystem and in our puzzle. So I like to teach a holistic, easy, simplified approach that you can easily implement inside of your business while allowing you to be able to amplify relationships and sales and honestly create retention and referrals in your business alongside with it too. So today we are going to be diving into creating a profitable email marketing strategy beyond the basics. Because here's the thing, so often we get really caught up in just the basics and everybody talks about the basics, but now we're getting to the point of like, okay, cool, like we have that down. Now we want to amplify it to the next level. And how do you do that without getting overwhelmed with all of the things? So we're going to be diving into easy forms and segments, how to know specifically who you can help on your email list. This is really incredibly important because a lot of times we have these lists of people, whether it's 300, 500, 5,000, 10,000, whatever that is. And a lot of times what ends up happening is we just have these people and we're like, we don't know the difference between Susie and Paul. And we're just like, we're just going to email all the peoples. So this is a great way to be able to figure out who's on your list, who's your next hot lead, and specifically who it is that you can reach out to, maybe on Instagram or over in social media world, where you can then be able to connect with them to be able to help them on along with the customer touchpoint journey. Okay, so that's the first thing. Then we're going to be diving into easy tagging to help you track actions that matter. I have seen both sides of the playing field where people have gone through and actually essentially track everything. Where they have all of these tags and segments and things, and they're just like, I don't even know what this even means, right? And a lot of times it's when I come in and I'm like, oh, well, okay, basically, long story short, we're going to have to go back through all of this and figure out what this means. And so we're going to make sure you're off on the right foot by tracking tags that matter. And then the next piece of this is 3 sequences that you need for each of those segments that we talked about earlier. So the biggest thing is that I'm going to show you the 3 segments that you need to have for sure. And then I'm going to teach you the 3 segments or the sequences that go with those segments. So it's basically you have the segments. I'm going to teach you the sequences that go with them. So that way you know exactly what you should be emailing those segments automatically in the back end of your funnel. So we're going to talk about the front end. We're going to talk about the back end. We're going to talk about all the ends when it comes to email marketing. But more specifically, I'm going to be teaching you guys the secret behind relationships and retention. And it comes down to one specific email. Now, this is something that I talk a lot about. And this is something that I am very extremely passionate about because it's very simple for you to use. It's not really a secret because I talk about it all the time, but it's always fun to put a little secret flair into things, right? So let's dive in first into easy forms segments. It really comes down to 3 different things. Now, essentially, we're thinking in a very customer journey-like manner where we're considering what are these 3 things in terms of what the 3 essential touch points or stages even that your people are going to be in when they're on your email list, okay? So essentially the first one is going to be for your freebie / opt-in. Now, you may be like a lot of people and you may have quite a few freebies out there, and that is totally completely okay. Now, if you're just getting started and you're like, oh my gosh, what in the world? It's totally okay, not a big deal. You can start off with one. My recommendation is to focus on doing something in a format that your ideal client will consume. Nothing worse than getting an 80-page PDF book and being like, holy guacamole, I do not have time to read that. So ensuring that you're doing that first is so incredibly important. Making sure that you do it in a format they will consume within an appropriate time frame that is easily committable to them as well too. Like for me, I can commit 15 minutes to watching a video. 15 hours, that's going to be a little bit more difficult for me to be able to commit to, especially if it's free, right? I'm just getting to know you. I'm getting to know who you are, what you do, and all the things. So think about the time frame, think about the format, and then in terms of with what you'll be actually sharing, share something that is completely actionable. Instead of staying surface level within what you're doing, focus in specifically into something very extremely tangible, right? That they can take, run with, get results, share with their friends, be able like, oh my gosh, I just got this guide on how to grow more organic followers and I got 20 yesterday. They're going to tell their friend Susie, they're going to tell their friend Paul. So like making it so that way it's super actionable always wins. Okay. So first things first, that first segment is going to be any freebie that you have. Now you can easily, there's lots of ways to organize the things within email marketing. And this is something that I talk about with my client Kelly all the time is like, we can do tags, we can do lists, we can do segments, we can do like all of the things, right? There's so many different ways. Do what makes the most amount of sense for your brain and for the platform that you're using. Again, there's lots of different ways you can do it. You can track based off of forms and tags, like in ConvertKit, or you can do with Active Campaign, you can do a primary list and then have it tagged. Lots of different ways to do the things. Again, whatever way works best for your brain, play with it, map it out, see what makes the most amount of sense for you to be able to track. And then my suggestion is, especially if you have a lot of freebies, is that actually start a spreadsheet where you can actually start to track all of the opt-ins, the links, and then also to the opt-in pieces. So in terms of like, okay, cool, for this opt-in, they get added to this list, they get this tag, or they become part of this segment. Whatever that is, map it out and document it. So that way, after you're finished setting it up or somebody else comes in, like myself, and comes and set those things up, you know exactly where those people are going into. So that way you can email them appropriately. Okay, cool. That's the first one. Okay, so the second one you want to have is what I like to call the non-buyer, non-customer, you can call it that. You can even say people who have not yet swiped their credit card, right? These are people who have not given you any monies whatsoever. They've come in through a freebie or another, free offering, whether it's a joint webinar, anything like that, where they come onto your list. And then from there, essentially, that's kind of like the middle bucket, right? People who are in the freebie bucket are new to your gang, right? These are people who are more so welcoming to the party. They're just getting to know you. People in the non-buyer sequence, or the non-buyer bucket specifically first, these are people who are been around for a while, right? These are people who have just not yet taken that next step. So those people I like to just put in the non-buyer bucket, keep them there. And then the goal is to obviously move them to the buyer bucket. Okay, so the next piece of this is the buyer. So you can already see we have the freebie, we have the non-buyer, and then we have the buyer. And so the buyer bucket, you can again call it customer, you can call whatever you would like. These are people who have ever given you money, right? These are people who have swiped their credit card with you in any kind of capacity. Now, in terms of with tagging, right? So those are the three buckets. Now, when it comes to tagging specifically, right? When it comes to tagging specifically, you want to be able to track tags that matter. That's like the most incredibly important part, right? Is being able to track things that really truly matter. And so within that piece of things, a lot of times, for me, it really comes down to, being able to look at a list of tags and being like, oh, okay, cool, that's what action they took. Or, okay, cool, these are the people that we can target. Or, ooh, these are the people that we can reach out to. So let me give you an example. So in regards to with your freebie, right? Within that, some of the actions that you would want to track within that are people who clicked to actually view the freebie, right? Those are people who are the action takers. Those are the people who are taking the initiative. Those are the people who are actually viewing the things. Now, in terms of with actually completing it or reading it or watching it, there may be, you could probably maybe set up a different tag within that, depending on how you have it set up and all the things. But on a surface level, you can tag those who actually clicked on over to the freebie. I usually don't track that specifically, but if you're interested in learning in terms of with like the actual percentage of people who open versus take action, you can definitely track that. Or even within your email marketing software, you should also be able to just click on the email and then also see what the overall percentages for that click through. And that'll also give you a good idea too, if you want it just in like a percentage view. But anyways, okay, so that's the first thing. Now, in terms of what towards the end for the sales piece of this, a lot of times I see people who will track for their Facebook group, for their Instagram, or whatever that may be, tracking if they clicked over. Listen, if someone is going to go over and look at my Facebook group or my Instagram or whatever, like, I'm not going to track that because like they're either going to follow or they're either going to like or they're going to click join. or they're not. And that's totally, completely okay. The one thing that I do track though, within the welcome sequence is how many people who click over to the application link. And here's why. A lot of times, whether it is an application or a book a call, or even to view something like to view the sales page, I like to track all of those things in order for me to be able to see who's clicked on the link, right? This is super valuable, especially if you have people who have clicked on the link but haven't purchased. You can then target those people specifically with that tag to follow up with them and say, hey, I saw you clicked on over to my application link. I just wanted to follow up with you and see if you had any questions. You can easily set up a retargeting email like that. You can also easily set up as well too, where you can check that list and then go find them on social media and reach out to them via Instagram DM or Facebook DM or whatever your preferred medium is. This is a way to be able to use it in a very non-sleazy, over-the-top way. It's not like sending 800 abandoned cart emails or anything like that. It's just a genuine reach out of like, hey, I'm just here to help. Like, I'm here to serve you. Like, if you have questions, like, I'm here to help, right? And that takes a completely different approach as opposed to you going through this process of like, oh my gosh, like you clicked the link. Well, what's wrong with you? Like, don't you know that the stars have aligned? We're supposed to work together. Like, I don't like to do it that way, right? So that's one thing that you can track there. In terms of with your buyer, which is, we'll get into the sequence here in a second. I'm tracking retention. And depending on the course, depending on the offering, depending on how you have that set up, it's really going to depend on what I'm looking at tracking. So for an example, I'm going to do a couple here. So for an example, if this is for a planner, right? So if this is for a planner specifically, and you are wanting to have somebody go through the process of reordering every 90 days, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to track those who have purchased the planner. So they're going to get a tag stating like buyer and then the planner name. But then within that as well too, once they hit that 90-day mark, I'm going to tag them as reordered or not reordered. And the thing that you can do within that is you can then track whether they go back through that sequence again. And the biggest thing within this, and especially if you're e-commerce, this is so much easier to do over in Klaviyo. It makes it so much easier because you can then track, oh, if they've had 2 orders of this, then get tagged as a reorder. So that gives you a really good idea in terms of with like purchasing reorders and retention and stuff like that for you to be able to follow up, especially if it's a subscription product. Now, if this is a membership, so let's say you have like a virtual online membership, what you want to do here is you would actually want to go through this process of essentially ensuring that you have a whole journey set up for them in terms of with their enrollment period. So let's say for an example, it's month to month. So generally speaking, they're going to get auto renewed and enrolled in all the things, but you want to make sure that you have email set in place if they don't renew, right? If they go through the process of, dropping out, if they become an alumni, whatever that may be. So that way you can recategorize them. So that way you can always retarget them, whether it's 6 months later, or 3 months later, whatever that may be. And you can also even set it up as well too, where, after they have been part of the membership after a while, whether they hit the 6 month or the year, you could then set up a specialized sequence that will send out to them. Now, a lot of this is very much so dependent on your technology and the tools that you're using and all of that. But there's tons of different ways that you can actually not really manipulate, but be able to create these very personalized experiences using email marketing with the power of tags. Tags are so powerful because it can track very valuable information as well too, with the reordering, with being able to track who's gone through the process of clicking on your application link, who is going through your course and actually clicking every single week on the links in order for you to be able to track their completion rate. All of that really fun stuff, especially if you don't have a software that allows you to track that. So email can give you lots of data, and a business that's built off of data takes away a lot of that unclarity or that uneasiness of like, how is my business doing? How is my business growing? What is the rate of my business growing? Like, data allows you to be able to do that, and email marketing is a great tool to be able to make that happen. Let's move into the 3 sequences that you need for each of those segments. So here's the thing within sequences. We can get so caught up in all of the sequences and all of the things. And a lot of times what ends up happening is we get, and I say we, because I'm included, We can get very overwhelmed with all of the options, with all of the things, and being like, holy God, there's so many things to choose from. Like, what sequence makes the most amount of sense to work on, to hire a copywriter for, or to do any of the things, right? And so essentially what you want to do is you want to make sure that you have a sequence for each of those segments. So for an example, for the welcome sequence, a lot of you guys may already have that. That is going to link to your freebie. And essentially within your welcome sequence, it's usually about 5 to 8 emails long. I've actually seen email sequences that are about 8 emails long perform better than the ones that are just 5 emails long, mainly because it's more time to be able to give a little bit more value, but more specifically, it's more time to sell. Because usually within a welcome sequence, and yours may be just like this, the last emails were when you sell. And that's what I was commonly taught. That's what I taught other people. I'm like, yeah, your welcome sequence, 5 emails, 1 at the end, that's how you sell. But the thing is that, like, especially when it comes to customer touch points, 1 isn't enough in terms of with a sale. Now, they may be heck yeah, like I've been on Instagram for 6 years with you and I am ready to buy. But a lot of times there needs to be additional touch points with that. And so by adding in those 3 additional sales emails and 1 specifically within a reminder, it makes a huge difference with being able to convert at a much higher rate with your welcome sequence. So I highly recommend expanding your welcome sequence by 3 additional emails and just focus on the objections, focus on those selling points and those pieces that are really going to help really like hone in your story, their story, and bring that all together. So that would be the first thing. Okay, so the second piece behind this is going to be your nurture sequence. And your nurture sequence specifically is 8 emails long. Now, the reason why I really like 8, 8s work really well for me because in 8 emails, you can do a lot. And within that, it's a good balance between selling and also giving value. And so for me, I like to take the approach of the jab, 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 right hook, commonly very much so pegged by Gary Vee. And essentially it's, value, 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 and then you add in the sale. That gives you enough time to be able to really hone in the good stuff before then asking for that next step. Now, one of the things that I would highly recommend within this process is essentially you looking at, okay, cool. Like, I know that we want to do the things, right? Like, I know we want to do the things in terms of with being able to, give the sale, but we also want to be salesy about it too, right? So what I like to do is I like to keep it within 8 emails because that allows you to be able to do 2 emails a week within this 30-day period. Now, your welcome sequence, with it also being 8 emails, you can also spread that out over a month as well too and do 2 emails a week for that welcome sequence. So this gives you about 2 months of very solid, very, very clear customer journey for your person. Now, within this, what you're going to do is you're going to focus in on stories. Now, for me, storytelling is the easiest way for me to sell. It's the easiest way for me to give value through my experience, through my client experience, all of these experiences. It just makes it a lot easier because we've been telling stories for ages, right? And within that, by telling stories, we're also giving tons and tons of value within that relatability factor. Now, relatability is so incredibly important, especially if you're trying to establish a connection with your ideal clients, right? A lot of times we have to start with a connection for us to be able to start blinging. Like, they're like, oh my gosh, you like sea turtles, or, oh, you love avocados too. That's so really awesome, right? So you have to have that initial connection point in order for that spark to get started. It's kind of like, I remember when I was in college, one of my old best friends, her name's Tori, she actually came up to me and complimented me on my boots and was like, oh my gosh, where'd you get your boots at? I really love them. Boom, we were like instant best friends. It was so cool. And so it's one of those things where like you just have that instant connection based off of a mutual interest. At that time, it was a pair of boots. Super simple. But within that as well too, we think about, okay, cool. Like after we've established that, how do you get that going? Connection then turns into conversations, right? And within that, it's really about those relevant touch points. It's really about creating that connection and engaging that with relevant touch points that then create these connection points. And a lot of times it's through stories. Because when you can anchor in a relevant touch point, right? When you create that relevant touch point with somebody, you can anchor in a memorable moment where they remember you. And that leads to memory storage and all sorts of amazing stuff. And that's why avocados and sea turtles are part of my brand, because it's very easy to remember. And while both of them are green, it is one of those things that you're like, oh my gosh, that's the girl who says holy walk, or oh my gosh, this is the person who actually loves sea turtles and can't wait to swim with them in September. Like, that is me. And it's really cool to be able to then see people relate to that, or to be able to remember me because of those things. Okay, so that's nurture sequences, right? Within that piece of it. And then what you're going to do then is that for your buyer, so the non-buyer is the nurture, and then the buyer, you're going to have a retention/fulfillment funnel. Now, this looks differently for everybody, absolutely everybody. It's not the same for any of my clients, actually, because each program is different in terms of with how many weeks is it, what kind of touch points, what kind of connection points do they need, and all of those things. And so one of the biggest things, like one of the biggest pieces within this, is mapping out what would it look like if you were to hold their hand, right? Now, when you have a one-on-one or even a group coaching program, sometimes emails that are very much so hand-holding don't need to be done, simply because you're doing it on a call, or you're doing it maybe via Voxer or Slack or something like that. So look at also too the repetition and like how many touch points are actually needed. Your retention and fulfillment funnel may just be a start of a welcome email that gets sent once they purchase with all the items that they need, which you may even just send over Dubsado. I mean, that's what I do, and then it could just be after that, after, they've completed it, then they get put into, you have a conversation over the phone, right? It could literally be like that. It could be, especially for like courses, I will do it full out where it is, okay, cool. You get the welcome email with week 1, week 2, week 3, it's an 8-week course. Every single week you get an email. And then after that, we wrap it up. And then we go into the next step, and then selling them into the next step. And so essentially what that does is it allows you to be able to really map things out, and allows you to be able to really take a look at all of your pieces. And from there, it just makes it easier, right? Because I can't even tell you how many times that like I've signed up for courses and have gotten like the welcome email that's just like, welcome, here's your Kajabi login, and then that's it. It's a huge opportunity miss, because we want to be engaged with people. We want accountability. We pay for information, but we really honestly pay for accountability. And so within that, it's really incredibly important to set up these kinds of emails, map it out. I like to just grab a piece of printer paper, map it all out, and just play with it. See what you need to do and see what that process needs to look like to make it make sense for you. Other sequences that you should consider, but I do not put on the priority list as like, you need to do this right now. If you are just starting out and you don't have any of those sequences, I would actually start with your welcome sequence first, then your fulfillment sequence if needed, and then come back to your nurture sequence. So that way you're using your welcome sequence to sign people in, to sell. You have them going into the retention sequence to retain them, further, or to move them to the next step. And then you can come back to your nurture sequence for those people who have not yet taken that opportunity. Now, when we move into weekly emails are something that, I get asked a lot about, because some people are like, Ashley, like, should I be sending weekly emails? Like, what does this look like? And essentially what you want to do is you want to take a look at what you can commit to. Now, for me, I am very much so like, listen, if you can commit to 1 a week, let's do it. Let's go. If you're like, whoa, I don't think I can commit to that yet. Hey, I totally get it. It's not a big deal. Let's see what we can get you to commit to, right? Or what makes the most amount of sense to commit to. And within that, I like to focus in on making sure that you commit to, again, what you can do very well. I would rather you write 1 really good email a month and go with it, as opposed to writing 4 really crappy emails. So that's my take on it. If you're planning it, I plan just like I plan for the nurture sequence. It's jab, 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 right hook. Same concept, same idea for the most part. And as long as you're not like in a launch or doing a challenge or something like that, that is exactly how I plan the things. We'll dive in real quick to subject lines and click rates, because I know this is super important and something that I get a lot of questions about as well too. So for your open rates specifically are 2 different pieces of the puzzle. We have the relationship of the name, so your name with them, that relationship, and then you have the subject line. Now, let me tell you what, a lot of times we focus just on the subject line. I mean, I can tell you subjectline.com, headline analyzer, like there's so many tools out there that you can use to create subject lines and learn how to create good subject lines. But realistically speaking, the best subject lines out there are the ones that are conversational, are the ones that really, honestly, truly, at the end of the day, are just based around intriguing curiosity, not being sleazy, not like the 3 tips to XYZ. It does not work. People don't want headlines. They want to be noticed. That's what it comes down to. People don't want headlines. They just want to be noticed. They want to be able to see themselves within what you're writing and with what they're doing. And so I highly, 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 highly recommend conversational headlines. Now, I'm going to get into an example here in a moment, but I want to talk about the relationship aspect because this is so incredibly important and most people miss out on this. When somebody sees an email inside of their inbox, they're going to see it's from Ashley DeLuca. Now, when people get an email from Ashley DeLuca, I want them to feel like they're at home, that their BFF Jill just emailed them, that they can feel like, holy guacamole, like I am so incredibly excited to see what she has to say this week. Like that is the kind of relationship that I want to have with my subscribers, is one where they just are like, oh my gosh, she's here. I'm seriously so excited. Like I want excitement and bubbly, and I want them to be like, oh, the avocado girl or the sea turtle girl or the girl with the crazy 2-year-old or whatever. Like that's the kind of feeling that I want to create within the emails that I send. And so that relationship just isn't with email. It's through my podcast. It's through my Instagram. It's through Facebook. It's through other channels. And so if you're over there on Facebook, not replying to your DMs or replying to your comments or not interacting with people, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, they're going to be like, yeah, no, this girl is crazy. Like, she don't care about me. But when you're over there replying and you're having fun and you're engaging with people, they're going to bring that same exact energy into email as well too. And so I highly recommend focusing in on using email marketing in a way that allows you to be able to amplify what it is that you're doing, to be able to amplify those pieces of the puzzle, to be able to amplify that relationship to the next level. And you can do that through the segments and the tagging and personalizing and really focusing on where they're at in their journey. That's what it comes down to, right? It's super easy. My best secret in terms of with click rates is to keep it simple, right? Like we all know the whole KISS analogy or the acronym or whatever you want to call it. Like keeping it simple is so incredibly true and important, and it makes so much sense, especially in email marketing. Now, there's lots of arguments out there in terms of well, that doesn't make any sense. Well, why would, our subscribers aren't dumb. Like they can know how to pick. Let me give you an example. I had myself double booked one night. And I had to choose between going to a training or going to a networking event. And I was like, oh gosh, I don't know. Like, I don't know which one I want to go to. And it's one of those things where I was just like, and so I was flipping the quarter on Google. I was trying to talk to I was like, which one should I go to? And it was like 8:15. And I was like, forget it. I'm not going to either. Like, I'm already late for both of them now, trying to decide which one to go to. And I like to keep that same analogy within email. Just keep it super simple. If you want them to go listen to your podcast, do the CTA as only go listen to the podcast episode. If you want them to book a call with you, that CTA should be to book a call. Stop diluting your call to actions with a cover up of like, oh, well, you can go and like my stuff over on Facebook or join my group or do this, or when you really just want people to book a call. One of the biggest things for me within email marketing and gaining my confidence is by asking what I really wanted to ask instead of hiding behind the ask. And that's something I see all the time in email marketing because it's so easy to hide behind the email and behind the screen and just be very passive. You're like, oh, PS. And PSs, don't get me wrong, PSs work very well and very strategically in terms of making sure that you're getting additional CTAs in or things but listen, if we're just keeping this simple, just have one call to action that you ask them to do and ask them to do the things. Very simple, very easy. That's exactly how I do it. Okay, so that is my thing for click rates, open rates, weekly emails. I hope that helps you as well too as an added bonus. Because I know it can be very confusing out there when you're trying to navigate through these waters and we're like, what really matters? What really matters? Other sequences that are really incredibly important depending on your business. So for all businesses, a re-engagement sequence is super incredibly important for those people who turn cold. And you know what? It is okay if those people turn cold because they're not your people, right? It's just like if you're at a campfire and all of your homies are like sitting right in front of the campfire and they're warming their hands with you, you're toasting marshmallows, you're here for it, right? But then you have people in the back and they're kind of just like, I don't know if I want to be around that campfire. Like, it's okay if no one wants to be around your campfire. You own that campfire. That's your campfire, right? And it's the same concept with email marketing. Just because somebody doesn't want to be part of your world, it is totally okay that they don't want to be part of your world. It's totally fine. And so within that piece of it, I just really want to encourage you that even if people turn cold, even if people decide not to be part of your campfire, it is okay. You don't have to let your campfire out because not everybody wants to be there. Keep letting your campfire burn because more people will get attracted to it and more people want to feel your warmth and more people want to hear what you have to say and the stories you want to share around the campfire, because that is how attraction marketing actually works, right? The next piece of this is going to be an abandoned cart sequence. If you are in e-commerce or if you have a course or something like that where it has significant value to it, things that are like $27 listing, you either want it or you don't want it. It's totally fine. I'm not going to set up a re-engagement or a abandoned cart sequence for that. But something in terms with e-commerce, especially when that's all you're doing, an abandoned cart sequence is so incredibly important. Win-back sequences are super crucial as well too. Win-back sequences can be extremely helpful in terms of with winning back a customer. Specifically, I like to use them and this kind of philosophy around people who have essentially kind of more or less decided to abandon your world. So win-back sequence would work great for subscription-based businesses that are trying to win back those customers back into the subscription-based model that they have. And lastly, you can always have a sales sequence. I think it's really incredibly important to have a primary sales sequence that you use to be able to sell your services or your products, whatever that may be, that you can use to be able to create a launch period. Even if you don't have a bunch of other stuff going on, you can still utilize a sales sequence in order to evergreen launch, which I think is really cool for you to be able to have to utilize. Whether you write it, a copywriter writes it, a sales sequence, I think is also something that you can also add in as well too. Okay, so those are 3 other sequences that I recommend. Again, there's lots of different things that we can create. I've created reminder email sequences. I've created, all of the things, new onboarding sequences, everything. I feel like I've created everything. So if there's an idea, it can probably happen. We can probably make it work and we could probably really amplify it and make it explode in all the best ways. But just keep it simple to start. That's the best way to do it, especially if you're not yet profiting from email marketing, or if you currently are and want to amplify it. Take those 3 sequences, run with it, make them best, roll with it, do the things. So the secret email, the best email in the entire world, but I could be a little bit biased. So within this email, I'll give you a little bit of context. So this specific email, I actually focus in on really just trying to be relatable, trying to be conversational with my ideal client. Now, a lot of times what ends up happening is I run experiments and tests and I see how things go. And this email literally exploded in all of the best ways. So I'm just going to tell you what it is because I know y'all are dying to hear it. So essentially what it is the subject line is, hey, that is it. Just HUI, that is it, nothing more. And then it says like, hey, Ashley, what you up to today? Very much so my kind of language based off of that. I was just talking to you, right? Like if you're in my DMs or on Voxer, is there anything that I can do to support you this week? Let me know when you have a sec. And then it said, your friend Ashley. That's it. That really short email with no link trigger. So there's like a 0% click rate, but it's totally okay. Not a big deal. That email alone skyrocketed not only just like an amazing, incredible open rate, but I had floods of floods of replies, but I also had DMs as well too from like my mentor. He was like, yo, what are you even doing? And I was like, go back to the email and look. He's like, we have Slack for this. And I was like, yeah, I know, just go back. And he was like, oh, I see. And then like my best friend texted me and she was like, why did you send me an email? Why didn't you just text me this? And I was like, go back. And she was like, oh, I see. And it was just really cool because like these are the kinds of emails that nobody sends out. People, Well, now people are sending them out because I'm telling everybody about them, but nobody sends these out. And what ends up happening is we just get stuck in like, where do I fit in, right? Like people are looking to be seen within email marketing, right? We're like, where can I fit in? Where's the table for me? What's going on? Like, what can I do? Like, what? And I like to make a place for people to come up to my table, to be invited, to have a seat, because for me, that's what it's all about. I've gone through this journey myself where I have essentially just gone through this elevational process, I guess, of trying to figure out what table should I be sitting at. Like, that's the thing. Like, my entire life, I had been looking for a table to sit at. My entire life. I was like, well, if I just sit at this table, like, I'll be successful. Everyone will like me. Or if I sit at this table, I'll finally make it and everything will be great. And I'll have the friends and I'll have the boyfriend and all the things, right? And it wasn't until I decided that I was going to do things my own way. Realistically, for me, email marketing allowed me to be able to create my own table, my own community of people who wanted to come sit at my table, who were like, she's got something to say, and I want to hear that. And that's what I want for you too. I want you to create your own table, for you to be able to create your own community of people who are dying to open up your emails, to wanting to know what you have to say, who respect what you have to say, and see you as the authority in your space. Because that's what I wanted to, right? And within that, email marketing was the key to unlocking that within inside me, to give me the confidence to stand up, the confidence to ask what I wanted. So I could take that not just outside of email, but then also bring it into other places as well too. Now, don't get me wrong, I am strictly an email marketing person here. And I just share my story. I just share my journey and share what I've done and all of the things. But the thing is that at the end of the day, email marketing is one of the most powerful tools that you can utilize within your business because it can't be taken away from you. It's not rented real estate. It's not like Instagram or Facebook where you have to play algorithm rules. You can show up in email marketing exactly as you would like, exactly as you are right now. And people are dying to hear your story. They're dying to be seen within your story. They're dying for somebody to relate to. That's what it comes down to. Like I've shared about, my brother who had cancer and is now in remission. I've talked about, going through this process of being being homeschooled back in the, 2000s when it wasn't really that popular. And within that as well too, having two brothers with Down syndrome, being the oldest of 6 kids, navigating being homeschooled and doing the things and like trying to figure out who in the world I was when I was super tomboyish and I really like to do like things way different than everybody else. And the thing is that for me, it's really about just, again, creating your own freaking table and owning that table and sharing your story, sharing what you're passionate about, whether it's sea turtles and avocados or it's grapes and cucumbers. I don't care. Whatever it is, I am here for it. And I want to be able to support you in that. So if you guys have any questions whatsoever, as you listen through this training, as you are diving into something else, please feel free to reach out. I am here to help. I'm here to help you. And so at any point, if you'd like, you can pop on over to Instagram. As I mentioned earlier, I'm at Ashley K. DeLuca. My website is ashleykdeluca.com as well too. But any questions that you guys have, you can voice note me. You can send me a video. I'd love to say hello and meet each of you. But for me, I really want you guys each to be able to win at email marketing, to be able to utilize your gifts and your passions to be able to share with the world so you can then in turn amplify those relationships and sales.